the dot in the bindi, they were to be targeted.
Wow.
So that was about 30 years ago, Prabhuji. So,
Godbusters.
and since then, some Indian community has made an outreach on these kind of things.
Shall we start, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened last week? You didn't have? You had?
We had last week we didn't have Prabhuji. Before that we had the revision.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. That's good. Hare Krishna. You're doing nicely. No problem. Take care. Hare Krishna.
Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagarajata Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vamcha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshotarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome all devotees in today's discussion, where we'll be covering chapter 6 and chapter 7 on various angas, various 64 angas of devotional service, 64 items. So today we will have a quick recap from our last discussion, which has been some time ago, 2 weeks back. Then a high-level summary of the 64 items in terms of their categorization, the primary and secondary of those items, most important ones to start with, and then group exercise to cover all the 64 items in various groups, and evidences that Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada provide to support these 64 angas, 64 items of devotional service. So, can anyone help us recollect any of the points which we discussed in our last discussion? I know which has been some time back, but if you got a chance to either go through the slides or go through the NOD book. Murli Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, last week we discussed about the three types of devotees: the Uttama Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, and Kanishka Adhikari. Yeah.
Yes,
And in
Prabhuji.
the Uttama Adhikari is the first class devotee. He has full knowledge and he's also full faith in the Lord. Yeah.
Yes.
Madhyama Adhikari has a lot of knowledge, but he has a faith which is wavering. He has a wavering faith. Okay.
Mhm.
The third one is the Kanishka Adhikari. Kanishka Adhikari is the one who is a neophyte. Yeah, who has just come into the fold, and then he's starting to feel the steps of the bhakti. Now, among those who come to this neophytes, there are four types, and these four types, which we had discussed, was in the Bhagavad Gita, where it is
Sukriti.
talks about artha, those who are in distress, Gajendra Moksha. This is what we discussed. Yeah. Then we also discussed artharti. Then in this Maharaj Dhruv we have included in it. Yeah,
Yes.
because he initially went for to get his father's love, but then he turned his direction later on. Yeah. The third one is the gnani. The gnanis are those who are knowledgeable, like the four kumaras. And then the fourth one is the jigyasu. Jigyasu are the curious ones. So there is I didn't write down the examples of this one here, but I think these are the four. Then it goes on further, Prabhuji, into that in the chapter 5. We discussed also about the who could be a Vaishnava, who should be given the privilege to the bhakti, yeah, and the rule, and also the foundation of the ISKCON, where we give the mm, we give the what he classes where the acharya is important, and we give the initiation for all those people various across the globe into the Vaishnava tradition. So these are the high level points I remember, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Murli Prabhu, for explaining so much in systematic and great detail. So just one point on this, Prabhuji. For the Madhyama Adhikari, he is the devotee who is convinced and is also able to convince others based on the supporting evidences from the scriptures. But he's discriminating, he's able to discriminate between how to deal with different devotees, between devotees, non-devotees. Whereas a Uttamadhikari, in his humility and on his advanced platform, he sees everybody else as a pure devotee of the Lord except for himself. So Madhyamadhikari definitely has faith in the Lord, and he's also able to support based on scriptural evidences. This is one. And Jigyasu example was the Naimisharanya sages of Naimisharanya forest.
Mm.
Thank you very much, Murli Prabhu. So we proceed with discussion today, which is on the various items of devotional service, 64 items of devotional service. So we saw in the, as part of our, the revision of the earlier chapters of Nectar of Devotion, we saw that Srila Rupa Goswami explaining about definition of pure devotional service, the original and the marginal characteristics of the devotional service. Then we also saw the 6 preliminary characteristics of the devotional service. We saw how devotional service is independent. It is not dependent on any other process for achieving Krishna on its own. It can lead us to complete perfection in our spiritual life. And we also saw the position of different kinds of liberations for the devotee. As such, a devotee doesn't aspire for any of these liberations, but he simply aspires for service to Lord Krishna, birth after birth. So now we come to today's chapter, where Srila Rupa Goswami is describing in great detail about how do we discharge the sadhana bhakti, how do we discharge the devotional service in practice by engaging our senses. And he compiles a list of 64 various angas, 64 various items of devotional service, which are again categorized into primary angas, secondary angas, and supplementary items. So that classification we will see in a while in subsequent slide. And then next chapters, we won't go to the overview as of now, but this is what is mentioned as a summary for the upcoming chapters. So from this particular chapter 6 till chapter 13, we will be covering these items related to the 64 angas, 64 items of devotional service. So let's see the overview first. And today there are a lot of examples. Oops, why doesn't it show properly? Yeah. Today there have been a lot of examples that we will be discussing. So feel free to ask second time or maybe get into more details in case you don't find any of the example, if you are not clear on any of the examples that we'll be discussing. So this 64 angas of devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami categorizes in two primary categories. First category is the primary angas, which cover the items 1 to 20. And second category is the secondary items, which cover item 21 till 64, total 44 items. So don't get bogged down too much by the numbers, but which are the primary and most important ones. And also we will have a group exercise for us to go into the details of all the 64 items in subgroups. So out of these first 20 primary items of devotional service, items number 1 to 10, they talk about what are the do's, what we should be doing in our devotional service called pravrutti. And items 11 to 20, they talk about the don'ts, what all items we should avoid as part of our devotional service in order to advance in our devotional service. And then items 21 to 59, they explain various sub-items, various angas of the sadhana bhakta, and that are also important, but in terms of the overall priority, they are below the 20 items. And then finally, Srila Rupa Goswami concludes with the 5 most potent forms of devotional service. And we will also see as part of our discussion today, how the program that Srila Prabhupada has given us, either in terms of morning program, in terms of temple program, in terms of day-to-day activities for all the devotees, both residents as well as householders, most of these items are already covered if we follow the program given by Srila Prabhupada. So out of these 64 items, we would be going a lot more in detail about the first 5, which are very, very important and which all relate to a very important aspect of devotional service, accepting a bona fide spiritual master. And wherever possible, I have also tried to mention examples, and we will also have inputs from Namanishta Prabhuji to understand this in great detail. This is a very important point. We have many of the participants in our batch who are aspiring for initiation, who will be soon going for initiation, and even for others as well as for the initiated devotee. What is the position of a Diksha Guru? What is the position of an initiating spiritual master? How do we understand Diksha Guru versus Shiksha Guru based on the teachings of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada? So we start with the first primary items of devotional service, and don't get bogged down by the Sanskrit words that are mentioned. If you want to see these words, you will have to refer to the PDF that we shared on the group, thanks to Murli Prabhu, who had shared it earlier. So it contains Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada with Sanskrit words. But even if we don't get Sanskrit word, that's fine, as long as we get the point and are able to explain in plain English as well. So first item is Guru Pada Shaya, which means accepting the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Now, if we see all the incarnations of the Lord, wherever he appears, either as Lord Krishna in the form of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so on and so forth, we see this important aspect of Lord Krishna himself showing through his example that whoever one may be, how much ever advanced one may be, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master and surrender oneself, take shelter of such a bona fide spiritual master. And the bona fide spiritual master is a means to approach Krishna and get mercy of the Lord. Like in level 1, Bhagavad Gita, we often give the example of the car manufacturers and the retail distributors. Like if we want to buy a particular car, say Tata car, we can't directly go to Ratan Tata, but we have to go to their retail distributors to buy a Tata car. Similarly, if we want to achieve the mercy of Lord Krishna, he is available only through the mercy of his devotees, the fulfillment of the desires and satisfaction of his pure devotees. So this is one very important first aspect of 64 items of devotional service. Second one is Shri Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam, which means formally accepting the spiritual master as one's authority and abiding by, we will come later, but taking initiation from the spiritual master, which is the process of formally accepting the spiritual master to commit oneself and surrender oneself to him. And there are wonderful examples in this, one of which I have taken here of our the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He, of course, he was seeing all the various sadhus coming to take association of his father, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, from his very childhood. And he himself was a great devotee as well as disciplined child right from the birth. In fact, it is mentioned that he was born with his umbilical cord tied, wrapped around his neck like a Brahmin thread. So he was a very, very special devotee right from birth. And the cart of Lord Jagannath waited for almost 2 to 3 days in front of the house of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, in front of the house of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur in Jagannath Puri, before the mother of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati brought the newborn child for the darshan of Lord Jagannath. Only then the cart moved. So he was not an ordinary personality, but he himself, through his example, we can see when he got input from his father in order to accept Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj as his spiritual master, he tried his level best to plead and to request Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj in one meeting, second meeting, and Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was testing Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, checking his sincerity. He said, first of all, that you are such an educated and scholar that I am not fit to be your spiritual master. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur pleaded with him. The next time Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj mentioned that let me ask Lord Chaitanya. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur relented. Then next meeting when he went to inquire, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj said that I forgot to ask Lord Chaitanya, although I had an interaction with him. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur finally became so desperate and not hopeless, but so disconsolate that he was not getting the shelter from his spiritual master, that he was about to give up his life by jumping into the Ganges. And finally, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, seeing the sincerity of his student, he decided to accept Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his disciple. Of course, his name was that time not Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but Bimal Prasad, which was the name given at the time of his birth. So we see so many great personalities as well as the Supreme Lord himself showing through their example the importance of accepting a bona fide spiritual master and formally committing oneself to him or her, to the spiritual master, to follow their instructions lifelong. Then third important of the primary angas of devotional service Srila Rupa Goswami gives is Vishrambhena Guru Seva, which means obeying the orders of the spiritual master out of the affection and reverence for the spiritual master. And in this regard, we see the wonderful example of the Brahmana in the Srirangam temple in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is mentioned when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in his travel tour of South India Yatra, he came across a Brahmin sitting in Srirangam temple in Rangakshetra, Srirangam, and trying to read Bhagavad Gita, but he couldn't read it properly. As a result, the other Brahmanas were making fun of him. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and asked this Brahmana, my dear sir, what are you trying to do? And he said that my Guru Maharaj, my spiritual master, has given me one instruction, which is to read Bhagavad Gita every single day, but I am an illiterate. I don't know how to read. And I am trying to fulfill the instruction of my spiritual master. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, then my dear sir, why do you have tears in your eyes? And this Brahmin said that whenever I see the picture of Lord Krishna on the cover of Bhagavad Gita, performing the service of a chauffeur, a chariot driver for his devotee Arjun, I see how great Lord is that he is willing to take up such menial service for the service and pleasure of his devotee Arjun. And seeing this, I have tears in my eyes. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conclusion was that you have understood the conclusion and essence of Bhagavad Gita, mainly because he was following the instruction of his spiritual master sincerely. So this is the third important point. And we also see how Arjuna himself in Bhagavad Gita, till the time he was putting forth his various views and arguments on why he should not fight, Lord Krishna did not speak a single word. But only when Arjuna surrenders himself in 7th verse in 2nd chapter, does Lord Krishna start giving him any instructions. Then fourth point, which Srila Rupa Goswami mentions within the primary angas, is Sadhu Vartmanu Varanam. So this particular Sanskrit word we also see in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna says in 4th chapter, Mama Vartmanu Vartante Manusha Partha Sarvashaha. What is this? Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. Which verse number is this? Yes, 4:11. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manusha partha sarvashaha. So Srila Prabhupada translates Mama Vartmanu Vartante means following the path. So Sadhu Vartmanu Varanam, which means one is expected to not only hear and commit oneself to the instructions of one spiritual master, but we should also follow the footsteps and the guidance and the instructions given by all other sadhus or acharyas coming in our line of disciplic succession, who are like the Shiksha Gurus. Shiksha Guru means once we learn from their teachings. So probably we'll need Namanishta Prabhu's guidance on this particular point more in detail. So here we see one particular example from the life of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of a very great personality. And again, whenever we are quoting this example, we should not minimize the greatness of these personalities whom we are discussing, and we should not judge their position. They have been great acharyas. It is just that Supreme Lord, through their example, is teaching us a particular point. So Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was once approached by Sri Vallabh Acharya, and Sri Vallabh Acharya had composed his own commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, and he mentioned in his conversation how his commentary was even better in a way than the commentary of the another predecessor Acharya, Srila Sridhar Swami. And as soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's remark was very stern, and he mentioned that one who does not follow a Swami is a prostitute. And Sri Vallabhacharya immediately understood his mistake and rectified. So we see that this particular path of following the predecessor Acharya and following this tripod of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, whatever instructions one receives from the spiritual master, conforming it with the instructions of the Shastras and also the Shiksha Gurus, the teachings that we learn from our Shiksha Gurus is very, very important. And last of these first 5 principles of primary aspects of devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami mentions as Shat Dharma Pricha, which means Prichami, Prichami, that word we hear from Arjuna, which means to inquire. Shat Dharma Pricha means to inquire about the principles of religion from the spiritual master. And we see this aspect also stressed by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in 4th chapter, where he mentions that Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadeshanti Te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshina, that we should submissively submit ourselves and submissively inquire from the spiritual master about how we can advance in our devotional service. And the examples of these are also numerous. Some of the prominent ones are like Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami themselves approaching Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and surrendering themselves as a menial, unqualified servants to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, despite they coming from a very, very aristocratic royal background of having served the king Nawab Hussain Shah as his prime minister and finance ministers. So these are some of the examples. And how the inquiry should not be made, Srila Prabhupada explains, inquiry should not be made either in a challenging mood or just for the sake of inquiry as a formality in order to get certain information without having the necessary disposition of surrendering oneself to whatever the Guru is going to say. Like say, for example, another example can be taken, excuse me, of Dhritarashtra. The Bhagavad Gita itself starts with Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjaya, where he asked, my dear Sanjaya, he doesn't even say dear Sanjaya, tell me what is happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where my sons and the sons of Pandu, they have come against each other, in front of each other. What does happen? But we see that Dhritarashtra at the end of Bhagavad Gita, he is still where he was in terms of the spiritual position. Whereas where Arjuna is inquiring to Krishna, my dear sir, that till now, whatever I had my own conceptions of what should be done, what should not be done, I have presented in front of you. But the issue is that despite all these conceptions, I am still not clear on what is my duty. So now I surrender myself as a sincere student to you. Please instruct me. And Arjuna's way of submission to Lord Krishna is to accept whatever Lord Krishna is going to mention in return. In fact, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, in the concluding part, Krishna gives Arjuna the option that I have given you what is my opinion, but it is up to you to accept or not accept, whether you want to fight or not. But we see that Arjuna submitting himself completely to Lord Krishna's instructions. So in similar way, a student should submit to the spiritual master, a disciple should submit to the spiritual master in the mood of total submission and accepting the instructions of the spiritual master. Namanishta Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Prabhuji, you want to explain a bit on the point of Shiksha Guru versus Diksha Guru? I have also mentioned it. This is a bit tricky, Prabhuji, for our devotees.
Too many things. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is before that, coming on the previous page slide. This is very important. Why the Guru, basically whole thing is Guru, the first 5 items. Even you see the very interesting, the Mangalarti is meditation on the Gurus, not on Krishna. Correct? Even though we are doing Arti for the Lord, the day begins of meditation on the Guru and Guru Parampara. We sing the Samsad Damnala on the Guru and our whole Guru Parampara. The spiritual life starts with shelter of a Bonafide Guru. So it's a very important principle. Some people think, oh, what is the need of Diksha? Not needed. True, to some extent, we are already connected to Guru Parampara through Srila Prabhupada's books. And this is a very important principle, like shelter. The shelter means just like there's something called Dandavat disciple. They just go put nice big Dandavat to the Guru. But what is needed is somebody following. Shelter means we are giving up our independence. We have independent attitude. Why this only? Why ISKCON only? Why when I can hear them also hear? That means he has still not accepted. So it takes time for a person, and then he takes the shelter of the glorious parampara from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Prabhu, we can't hear you.
Yeah, now we can hear, Prabhuji. Yes.
Just wait. Did you any change was there? I was. Is it okay now?
Yes, Prabhuji. We just lost you for 2-3 seconds. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Now the idea was that accepting the shelter means to give up independence. I will. Everybody has the freedom. No, we have freedom. Do what we want to do. This independent mentality and take completely shelter of the Guru. This very, very big thing. And we have Lord Chaitanya, Ramachandra. There's so many examples. Prabhuji has all very good examples. Even Srila Prabhupada says, I came under the protection of my spiritual master. Imagine. So nice. So this is a very important principle. And this first 5 are covering this principle. Taking initiation, committing ourselves to the vows. And then, the out of affection, Prabhupada said, unless we have affection, why will we be obeying the spiritual master? And if somebody has an affection for the spiritual master, will not disobey. Prabhupada said, if you're thickly bonded to the spiritual master, you can easily follow rules and regulation and advance in bhakti, because it is not out of realizations. See what happens? Out of realization, we still do not have realization that drinking is not good. I have not drunk in my life. Many of you have never done. Or many of us have not taken drugs in our life. Do you have a realization it is good or bad? No. So when we become thickly bonded to the spiritual master, just like say at home, your father is there and certain thing father doesn't like. You have realization or not realization does not matter, because it doesn't like, you just don't do it. You don't want to upset him. Correct? You don't want to hurt him. If father came to know that certain thing he doesn't like and you do it, he gets hurt. So you just avoid it. So similarly, when you're thickly bonded to the spiritual master, you obey him even though you don't have those realizations. And how many of us have realization? So much sensitization, mind keeps roaming. No, Guru doesn't want this. That's it. So this is very important. Out of affection, this is very important. Thickly bonded. Prabhupada says, unless somebody thickly bonded to the spiritual master, why?
Sorry, Prabhuji, we lost you again.
Again?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, sorry, I think it's Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Yes.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. These things will be, I'll try to set an external mic now. I'll just come back. So computers are just still not set up. To follow the footsteps of the saintly person, that again becomes a Guru Parampara. We should be following Sadharma Prich. So this is, and then asking for the inquiries. Sadharma Prich, inquiring, yes, inquiry is there, but there should be genuine inquiry to advance his spiritual life. Okay. Very nicely, some new thing I saw this. Dhritarashtra inquiry, Arjuna's inquiry. Not read from Prabhupada book, some kind of a thing. So, essence is fine. There is an inquiry. The spirit of inquiry should be there to advance the spiritual life. Actually, many times we do not have inquiry because we are not eager to advance. You just think about it. Right from Mangalarti to the end of the day, none of the devotion service we are able to do properly. And neither we are able to even submit and pray to the Lord properly. So I do not know how we do not have inquiry. It's really a shocking thing. We should have thousands of questions in our heart if we want to advance. Because we don't want to advance, and as I was joking, like Sattva-guna, there is one problem with Sattva-guna. We become quite comfortable. So we similarly in spiritual life also, we see in the same, like we tasted Sattva-guna, we see these people are roaming around for sense gratification. And I think some kind of contentment we should not have. If you want to eager to advance a spiritual life, there's an opportunity will. In fact, many times I've seen Prabhupada disciples say that Prabhupada was with us and we didn't take full advantage. We didn't ask so many spiritual questions for our spiritual advancement, for benefit of the all the devotees. We didn't ask, even they were talking about managerial questions, like for the Varnashma, so we could have asked Prabhupada, no? He could have asked. Now he's not there. So such an opportunity is lost. So whenever we get opportunity, we should ask question for spiritual. And then actually you yourself see somebody when he comes to you, see, Prabhu, how do I chant properly? I'm not able to chant. I'm not able to hear only every word. This is true for all of us. But whenever we get an opportunity to meet a devotee, we should ask this to the devotees who can instruct you, help you in this. But generally we don't do that. We discuss all world politics. We discuss weather, food, uta. Enough of uta. We don't have a question for spiritual advice. Therefore, Prabhupada says we should not go to guru. We should not even accept a guru unless we have a submissive ear. We should not. What is the use? Just like in Bhagavatam, we are saying so many good examples. The discussions are going on because they want to advance the spiritual life. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Will not delay your class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Namanishta Prabhuji. And as a supplement to understanding the importance of accepting a spiritual master, as Prabhuji mentioned, we also have the initiating spiritual master and the instructing spiritual masters. So in our movement, we have so many disciples of Srila Prabhupada who have inherited various moods of Srila Prabhupada, like somebody is into community building, like congregational preaching, somebody is into preaching to the tribals, somebody is into constructing huge temples for the attracting the mass, somebody is into devotee care, somebody is into varnashram system establishment. So all these, somebody is into book distribution. So all these various disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they are inheriting various moods, and we should learn to appreciate that mood and accordingly also accept the person who is inspiring us the most as one's Diksha Guru is one, but at the same time, be very respectful towards all other God brothers of Guru Maharaj as one's Shiksha Gurus and learn from them. And we see the classic example from the lives of the Goswamis on this. We have three exemplary devotees in our Sampradaya. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who was the disciple of Srila Loknath Goswami, Shyamananda Prabhu, who was the disciple of Srila Hruday, I've written it down, Hruday Chaitanya, I believe. Sorry for this. Yeah, Sri Hruday Chaitanya, Shyamananda Prabhu was disciple of Sri Hruday Chaitanya, and Sri Srinivas Acharya, who was the disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So all these three devotees, they were very, very closely bonded friends. And all three studied Srimad Bhagavatam under the guidance and under the tutelage of Srila Jiva Goswami. So we see that they had their own Diksha Gurus as one, but they accepted the common Shiksha Guru as Srila Jiva Goswami to learn from him and further propagate those learnings in the form of preaching activities across various areas that were given to them by Srila Jiva Goswami as well as Jannava Devi, who was leading the Vaishnava Sampradaya at that point in time. So this is one of the classic examples. Prabhuji, you want to add anything on this?
Diksha, Shiksha, first thing is that we should not put Siksha as down and Diksha as up, or Diksha as down and Siksha as up. Both are extremely important. In fact, our parampara is a Siksha parampara, wherein the Diksha has been sometimes even ignored. Like Madhvacharya, Diksha Gurus, Achyuta Priksha. We don't talk about that. Bhaktivinoda Prabhupada never talked about that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also has some another Diksha Guru, which is we don't never talk about it. We talk about a Siksha Guru, Jagannath Das Babaji. And then Gaur Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj had a Diksha Guru. We never talk about him. We talk about a Siksha Guru. So ours is primarily a Siksha Parampara. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that don't put down one against another. Both are extremely important. And it's a misunderstanding to see Diksha is more important. Many devotees have that. Siksha is less important. So my connection to Srila Prabhupada is not so important. My connection to my Guru is more important. Don't think like that. In fact, our parampara is primarily a Siksha parampara. Both are important. Okay, so Siksha Guru, when we say primary Siksha Guru, it's a very big post. And our parampara is the Shiksha parampara. So it's a very important principle Srila Prabhupada occupies. And each devotee should cultivate a personal relationship to Srila Prabhupada, direct personal. And that only develops when we sit and read. We don't want cheap publicity for Srila Prabhupada. We do not want. Otherwise, we can put big hoardings of Srila Prabhupada in all the towns. ISKCON can do that today. We don't do that. We want people to read his books and develop a personal relationship to Srila Prabhupada. Personal. So great he is. Just by reading, you can feel that. But provided we read. Most of the time, the devotee just, WhatsApp, see one line, two line. That's good. That's for encouragement. But we should sit down and at least for 1 hour with a cool head, read Srila Prabhupada translation and purport. So that is because he is the founder Acharya. Not that after 4 generation, 10 generation, forget Prabhupada. No, he will be the primary personality in everybody's heart in this movement. Okay. Important understanding Diksha Shiksha Guru. Yes, many. So Shiksha Guru many means Prabhupada's position should be understood very uniquely. Narottam Das Thakur Shamanta Srinivas Acharya. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So we move. Yes, so can we have any devotee who would like to read? Yes.
I'm Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Can I read?
Hare Krishna Shailaja. Yes, ma'am.
20 items. Okay, sorry, right. Without following the above mentioned 10 principles, one cannot properly elevate himself to the platform of sadhana bhakti or devotional service in practice. Altogether, Srila Rupa Goswami mentions 20 items, and all of them are very important. Out of the 20, the first 3, namely accepting the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, taking initiation from him, and serving him with respect and reverence are the most important.
Thank you. Nectar of Devotion, page 53. So you might have seen, we have seen only 5 items so far. Where are the remaining 5 that we will cover as part of the group activity? So not to worry. Yeah, so now we have the group exercise, and in fact, in this, just thinking if we should redistribute. Yeah, so let's cover this, what has been planned here. So after the initial 10 plus 10, 20, which are the primary items which are given in the beginning of chapter 6 are covered, then Srila Rupa Goswami also goes into the supplementary items. He doesn't call them supplementary, he calls them next important items of devotional service, which are numbered 1 to 44. So that last number, instead of 43, consider as 44. So we will form 5 groups of devotees, each covering around 9 of these items. So if you have your Nectar of Devotion book, these start on page 61. And if you want to refer online, if you don't have the physical copy, that is fine as well for now. So we will have around 10 minutes for discussing these 9 items within the group. And out of these 9 items, you don't have to mention these 9 items as it is, because these are available for easy reading. But maybe the essence of these 9 items or some of the examples, if you want to quote, not going beyond 3 minutes for per group. So is the activity clear? Any question on this? There are page 61 to 63, Srila Rupa Goswami has given 44 sub-items. These are after the first 20 that are covered. All right, so if there is no question, then we start the breakout rooms. Let me put this on the chat first. And we request devotees not to take too long, because we have quite a bit of examples to cover, the evidences what Srila Rupa Goswami is giving. So we need sufficient time for it. So request us all to cover our group discussion in 10 minutes. Now it is 1:17, which means 10:47. And we will conclude discussion in 10 minutes. Oops. Hare Krishna. So I'm sorry if the time was not sufficient to cover all the assigned items, but whichever you could cover, the groups can present on them. So can we start with group 1, who were to cover items 1 to 9? So,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Ankit Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, we could not discuss all the points, but
No problem. Whichever you could cover, that can be presented, no issues.
okay, yes, Prabhuji. So first one regarding the Vaishnav Tilak. So we should apply Tilak on body because it is having very much significance that it represents the feet of Krishna and a Tulsi leaf. So which always reminds us to serve Krishna. And when we see someone wearing Tilak, so it feels very good, means that yeah, we have seen a Vaishnava. So it is the identity of Vaishnava. And there is some also when I was hearing the pastime of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, so in his beginning, the first time when he saw the devotees, so he saw the tilak only, and by seeing that tilak, he got excited. So one is that. So and second is that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to take the class as Nimai Pandit, so he used to send back the students who were without tilak. So he used to say that you have not taken bath, so that is why you have not applied the tilak. So you go back and take bath. So that much significance it is having. And second, Prabhuji, we could not understand that we need to write Hare Krishna on body, but we have not seen any devotee is doing that.
Yeah, so I don't think Prabhupada has written one has to write, one can write, that's what he has mentioned here. In the marking such tilak, sometimes one may write Hare Krishna on the body. So that is not a normal practice as such, but if one wish to, then one can write.
Okay, the third point is that one should accept flowers and garlands that have been offered to deity and spiritual master. So that one could take them as blessings, and also one can smell them. Like we need to engage our nose also. Rishike and Rishike Sevanam. So that's what we understood. And that's the point, Prabhuji, we could discuss.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. But we request devotees, like even if you couldn't read it all through in this 10 minutes, please do go through at your leisure in detail. Thank you very much, Ankit Prabhu and the group 1. Now, can we have devotee from group 2?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Priyadarshini Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Yes, I was a part of the group, but we did not actually decide who is going to present. But I thought I will mention a few points which we thought were very relevant.
Yes,
now, in the next point, it says we have to dance when we chant or sing. Now, here we are involving our legs also. The whole purpose of chanting and singing or glorifying the Lord is to use all our senses in worship. So here, when we are using, of course, all cannot dance. But I feel, personally, I feel, you can also imagine we are dancing and then offer that imagination to the Lord when we are unable to really physically do it. That's what I feel. And then it's ecstatic. It shows, and there's a saying that, when we sit, we sleep and pray, Lord sits and listens. When we sit and pray, Lord stands and listens. When we stand and pray, Lord dances. And we dance ourselves, he comes and embraces us. That's what I have read somewhere. So when you do that, Lord embraces us. So that's what I felt about that point. And one should learn to bow down immediately after seeing a deity or spiritual master. You have to always be bowing, because bowing is, we also bow to a person whom we meet, because there's God in him. It's not for the physical body, it's for the Lord that residing in the heart. We bow down. And the spiritual master, definitely, is God incarnate for us. And as soon as one visits a temple, we have to stand up. We have to offer our obeisances, again in respect. Where we have to surrender. That is actually a sign of surrender. When the deity is being born on a stroll, for a stroll in the street, they take a Ratha Yatra in the street in many of the places. We have to follow the procession, chanting and glorifying and dancing. It's very important. In this connection, it will be noted that in India, of course, several places that happens. It's a very auspicious thing to go behind the procession. You should never lead the procession. Some people, very exalted people, lead it. You have to only follow with worship. That's how exactly this next point elaborates. That's what I felt. And then, of course, we discuss. Yeah, of course, we discuss several points. But we can add.
Mother, we have limited time.
Fine, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. Apart from Priyadarshini Mataji, anybody else wants to add anything from group 2? All right. So
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Prabhuji, we covered 10 to 18. Actually, so it says that one must worship the deity in the temple according to regulative principles. That is, we must bathe the deity properly, then clean the entire altar, and then dress it properly, decorate it with flowers and ornaments, and put tilak with chandan and kumkum, all that. Those are the regulative principles. And then personal service must be rendered to the deities. Then in front of the deities, we must sing and do sankirtan, or we can sit down and chant, and we can offer prayers. We have to offer prayers like that. Those are the points. And we should accept the Mahaprasad and the Charanamrut. So Charanamrut is very important because it carries the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is very important. Those are the points we covered, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much,
Hare Krishna.
And if for more details on this, we can contact even some of the pujaris in the temple to understand how personally the deity of the Lord is treated, including putting the Lord to bed. How do they wake Lord up? It's very, very personal. Right? Thank you very much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we now move to group 3. So can we have devotee volunteers from group 3?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We didn't decide who will present the points, but we discussed all the time. From 19 to 27, it was all about deity worship, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So we were through deity worship, how to do it? Like we have to smell the incense flowers, touch the lotus feet of the deity. I mean, we should see the deity with great devotion, and should, I think, so by that we try to associate, through deity worship, try to relate to the Lord. I mean, at least establish a affection, a personal relationship to the Lord through this thing. And also pray to deity for the mercy, because keep reminding ourselves about it helps us to think about the personal form of the Lord. So, and some more points I think Murli Prabhu can tell. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Sujata Mataji. Murli Prabhu, Hare Krishna, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. We started off saying that these items which are present, which are being discussed about the deity worship, it can be done by one in a personal form. Yeah, it can be done by anyone belonging to any of the varnashramas, and it can be done by whether it's a Madhyamadhikari, a Uttamadhikari, or a Kanishka Adhikari. Yeah, this is one point which we had looked upon it. Then the other things is, yes, as Mataji has mentioned, we want to relate it to the Lord. And then these are also, we briefly touched that it is also Karma Kanda part of the Bhagavad Gita, where it is linked to the, our activities. Yeah, because especially when the once it says one should offer everything to the Lord, and one should think of to a devotional service. Yeah, Prabhuji, lastly, just going up, I will mention 2 points. One is that these 2 slokas I see is from the Sanskrit version. It is mentioned, it is 1.2.86 and 1.2.87. The 19 to 21 Yeah, it's a part of the one between 1.2.86, which covers from 15 to 21, Prabhuji. But the other 7 points, which is this, it says Artikot Seva Dase Shravanam Tat Kripakshanam Smriti Dhyanam Tata Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. So these all are covered from 22 to 29, Prabhuji. It's 1.2.87.
Okay, noted.
In all this process, we relate to the Lord, and then through the Lord, we meditate upon the Lord with the deity as our focus point, so that it helps helps us in focusing and keeping our focus on the Lord all the time. That was our points. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Murli Prabhu, Sujata Mataji, and all the devotees. Just one point in this: deity worship is highly recommended, especially also for the householders, so as to purify ourselves on a regular basis, because we are in lot of touch with the external energy of the Lord in terms of our interacting with the outside world. So it's very much recommended.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. We discussed this. It can be done by both the householders and the non-householders also. We touched this point also in our discussion, Prabhu.
And as part of our demo that we are planning on 6th of November, we will also show in practice on video performing the basic deity worship at home. Okay, we'll cover this. Thank you very much, Murli Prabhu and devotees. Just also one point, these points are part of devotional service project. So they are much above Karma Kanda or any of these other yoga processes. They are directly part of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, all the deity worship. So Karma Kanda is when we do certain activity to get benefit for our own selfish motive, not for the pleasure of the Lord. Okay. Thank you very much, Murli Prabhu. So group 4, can we have devotees from group 4?
Prabhuji, I can start, and then Mataji and Prabhuji from my group can actually chip in as well.
Sure.
Yeah, we didn't have much time, so and we took a different approach, to be honest. So first, what we realized from 28 to 36 was it's all about Navabhakti. It also sets a relationship with Krishna. So it starts with 28, where it talks about one should think of Lord as one's friend. So there are two things that comes up. One is in Bhagavad Gita, we try to connect the dot, where in 5.29, Krishna himself says that Bhuktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Savridam Sarvabhutanam Jnatva Mam Shantim Richati. So he talks about the relationship, and also saying that I am everything. It starts basically, he's the controller, he's the enjoyer. Other than that, here there is an example that sets, and he also talks that he's the best friend. We don't have any other way other than him being there all over with us. And the one example that comes to my mind is Sudama, where he always thought Lord as his friend. Of course, other than Arjuna as well, there are many other examples. The second one should offer everything to Lord, and then the item 30, which was basically offer favorite article. Here we have, of course, there are a lot of historical examples, but when we connect back to Bhagavad Gita and the shloka, it comes to where we have one shloka from chapter 9. I don't remember exactly. I think it's 26, where we say Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. And there's also one that Mataji talked about was chapter 8, 66 shloka, where we set that anything and everything is there, is basically starts, and there's also talks about in chapter 3 where why yajnas were performed and what is the importance of actually sacrificing. Since in Kali Yuga we cannot sacrifice or we cannot perform yajnas, the only way to actually purify what we eat is first is offered to everything to Krishna. Anything and everything, whether it's materialistic food or anything, we start with Krishna's thought in mind. We offer it to him, get his blessing, and then consume it or enjoy it. Then the other topic, item 31, was about one should take all the kinds of risk and perform all the endeavors. I think Prabhuji, you want to talk about the shloka 18.66?
You can go ahead, Mataji. Now it's going good. Now 31, it says one should take all kind of risk and perform all endeavors for Krishna's benefit. So here we discuss the example of how Srila Prabhupada took such a great risk going to US at the age of 69, 70 and transformed so many millions of lives. So this was discussed, and in every condition one should be surrendered soul. So here the 18.66 sloka was discussed. Sarva dharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. This point was discussed. And then 33, one should pour water to the tulsi tree. So just by the mercy of pure devotee and seeking the shelter of tulsi, we can raise in our spiritual bhakti to Krishna is discussed. And 34, one should regularly hear Srimad Bhagavatam and similar literatures. So 9 forms of spiritual practice is being discussed, like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So Shravanam is given a lot of importance. Hearing is the first level of bhakti, the progressing in bhakti. So this has been discussed. So other points, any other devotees wish to add? Hare Krishna.
26. All right. Thanks a lot for explaining so nicely, Manisha, Mataji, Santosh Prabhu, and all the devotees of group 4. So now we move to the last group of devotees. Group 5, which is for items 37 till 44.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gopika Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Prabhuji, actually, we were also not able to discuss much, and we found the time is less, and we were not able to decide who is going to say. But then I can start, Prabhuji, and then maybe Dharnishwari Mataji can add some points.
Okay. Okay, Mataji.
Yeah. So, Prabhuji, the first one is like serving the Lord according to one should arrange one's devotional service according to one's means. So based on our one's financial position, we need to like perform the ceremonies for the Lord, and whatever is our capability, like as per that, we should always try our best to serve the Lord. And also, observe different ceremonies and celebrations. And for the next one, Prabhuji, the next one is in month of Kartika, one should make arrangements for special services. So even Dharnishwari Mataji, you want to talk about this point? Hare Krishna. Okay, I think she is not there. So in Kartika month, like currently we are doing like there are so many things that we hear from our senior Vaishnavas, and the most important thing is the Damodara Vrata that we do. Like every day we should show lamp to the Lord, and also like as far as possible we should have this Damodar Puja celebrations at our house, and also invite new people so that and also tell them talk to them about the Damodar Leela and what is the importance of doing Kartika Vrata and all. And like for the next one, Prabhu, during Janmashtami, one should observe a special service. So during Janmashtami and the other festivals, so we should talk about different like Lord's activities, and then especially like through cultural activities like drama or dance. So we should we should invite all the people from outside, and we should show them like what are the activities that Krishna performed, and how did Krishna took birth, and all those things.
Thank you very much, Shama Gopika Mataji, and all the devotees in group 5. So now we move to the later part of the same sequence of 64 items, where Srila Rupa Goswami offers various evidences from the scriptures to go into the details for these items. So we would probably only go through which we have not discussed in detail earlier. So let me make it big. Yeah, so in chapter 7, you can refer to chapter 7 if you have NOD physical copy. First one, Srila Rupa Goswami mentions about accepting initiation from spiritual master and receiving instruction from him. So we see from the life of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada himself, that this was one quality of Abhay Charan Day, who's like Srila Prabhupada's name earlier, which attracted the attention of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So in this regard, one story comes when Srila Prabhupada had once attended the Brajabandal Parikrama Yatra being conducted by his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada was a business person, a householder, so he could only manage to go on the last day of the yatra in Brajadham. And on that day, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had given two options to the devotees. Either the devotees could go and visit the temple of Sheshashai Vishnu, which is there in the Brajamandal Parikrama, or devotees can choose to stay back and hear from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And most of the devotees, they did go for visiting the deity of Sheshashai Vishnu, which is not wrong, but the reason why Srila Prabhupada stayed back is very, very important. Srila Prabhupada thought to himself, and he himself mentions it later, that what would I do by taking the darshan of the deity if I am not properly understood the details from my Guru Maharaj? So it's better for me to stay back and hear from my Guru Maharaj. And there were hardly few devotees present in front of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in that, Srila Prabhupada stayed till the end, hearing very attentively from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And later on, when Srila Prabhupada's, like Abhay Babu's name came up for initiation, and it was proposed by the temple president, if I remember correctly, of the Allahabad temple to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that Abhay Babu can be proposed for initiation. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's first response was, yes, I remember him. He likes to hear and he is very attentive in hearing. That was the observation of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is very important aspect for a disciple to hear very attentively and carefully from the spiritual master and taking up the mood of the spiritual master. Here is also one quote I have mentioned from the book NOD. Anybody would like to read? Indira Mataji Jaivan Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Babuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Accepting initiation from the spiritual master and receiving instructions from him. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, Chitate Koryo Aika, Arana Kohiro Mane Asa. One should learn Srimad Bhagavatam seriously and with all respect and veneration from the spiritual master. Hearing and speaking Srimad Bhagavatam is a religious process that elevates one to the platform of serving and loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The attitude of the disciple should be to satisfy the bona fide spiritual master. Then it will be very easy for him to understand spiritual knowledge. Nectar of Devotion, page 66. Example, Srila Prabhupada's sincerity in hearing from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Jaivan Prabhu. So, and this fact has been stressed in so many prayers that we sing, including Guru Ashtakam, including Guru Puja, that by satisfying the spiritual master, we can satisfy Krishna and not otherwise. So we proceed. Then next aspect of devotional service, which Srila Rupa Goswami also stresses, is serving the spiritual master with faith and confidence. So in this, there are so many examples again. And here, the quote that Srila Rupa Goswami gives from Srimad Bhagavatam, it is Lord Krishna's conversation with Uddhava. He mentions, my dear Uddhava, the spiritual master must be accepted not only as that means Krishna's representative, but as good as Krishna's own self. And spiritual master should never be considered on the same level like an ordinary man. Otherwise, one is bound to be failed in one's spiritual endeavor if we consider spiritual master like an ordinary person. And one of the exemplary example of this comes in the life of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who served his own spiritual master very, very menially, although coming from a great royal background that I believe he was a prince at that point in time, but he served his spiritual master, personally cleaning the place where his spiritual master used to respond to the call of nature. And again, his own spiritual master, Srila Loknath Goswami Maharaj was not ready to accept him as his disciple, and he didn't even know who was rendering this menial service. So one time after his morning duties, he went and hid in the bushes to see who is doing this service. And when he saw Narottam Das Thakur himself doing this menial service, his heart melted and he told, "Oh, my dear son, it's not for you to render such menial service." And then he finally decided to relent and accept Srila Narottam Das Thakur as his student. So this mood of accepting the spiritual master as the confidential representative and servant of the Lord is very, very important, and serving him accordingly. Let me just, Namanishta Prabhuji, do you want to cover on these points one by one? Or if not, I can just have you review the conclusions as well, Prabhuji.
No, the small note that in the sadhana that we have in a day, the 64 items are covered. You're talking about the Guru Padashraya there in the prayers to the Guru, like that, Tulsi Puja, Parikrama, everything. If you see 64 items, proper designed of a sadhana in such a way that it covers. That is the only point. Okay? Otherwise, when you hear 60, "Arey yaar, ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi bach gaya," is all there with what is needed to be done. It is there in the sadhana proper design. Okay? Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. And this is very important point, that if we simply follow the process Prabhupada has given us, all these are covered well. So next one, Srila Rupa Goswami goes into the details, is giving up the association, giving up the company of the non-devotees. Yes, attendance link I have requested. Just give me a few minutes. Yeah, just pasted it now. Giving up the association of the non-devotees. So Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his own example, has taught us. Of course, Maharaj Prataprudra was definitely a great devotee of the Lord, but in his role as a sannyasi, model sannyasi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very reluctant to meet and give audience and interact with Maharaj Prataprudra, saying that, "Please don't push me to associate with a materialist, and better I go and drown myself in the ocean if you push me to do that." But later on, seeing the humility and devotion of Maharaj Prataprudra in service to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even before Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in serving the devotees of the Lord, menially in the background, arranging for them all the accommodation, especially for the Bengali Vaishnavas who used to visit Jagannath Puri for the annual Rath Yatra festival, Maharaj Prataprudra made very nice arrangement, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed that. And finally, the culmination of that was when Maharaj Prataprudra, in a dress of a very simple, I believe, mendicant, but very simple, humble dress, he was sent by the devotees to serve Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Jagannath Vallabh garden. And that singing of the Gopi Geet for the pleasure of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally opened up Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart, and he embraced Maharaj Prataprudra. Then similarly, we also see another example of one of the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, who was also a sannyasi, being very reluctant to having come to meet Pundarik Vidyanidhi, because he thought that he's such a opulent person, and that time Pundarik Vidyanidhi was getting decorated through his servants, and watching his own reflection in the mirror and chewing the betel leaf pan, and smiling, looking at his reflection. And Gadadhar Pandit was thinking that, why has Mukunda brought me to the assembly of this materialistic person? And then Mukunda sang a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam to reveal the glories of Pundarik Vidyanidhi's devotion. Hearing that verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam, Pundarik Vidyanidhi completely became overwhelmed in thoughts of Krishna, and he forgot his outside surroundings, his position as a king, and he displayed great symptoms of ecstasy, and his whole clothes and everything became disarrayed. And Gadadhar Pandit felt very, very embarrassed that I misunderstood the position of Srila Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and then he took initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So we see through so many examples how a devotee, based on the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as far as possible, we should be very careful in our dealings with the non-devotees. Hare Krishna, please mark your attendance. This has been given by Janaki Mataji. We'll have it corrected later. Don't worry about the date. We'll have it corrected. Then next one, Srila Rupa Goswami mentions, is not accepting unfit disciples. Yeah, not accepting unfit disciples or constructing many temples, reading many books. And I guess some of these points are quite important for us, especially around the books. So in terms of not accepting unfit disciple, that's why in ISKCON, we follow in general a criteria, qualifying criteria for the devotees, where a devotee needs to be, Hare Krishna.
Right.
Where a devotee needs to be observed for a certain period of time in terms of his or her sadhana, and then recommended by the authorities, typically temple presidents or counselors, for initiation. And in the present case, in ISKCON Mangalore, we have so many programs in terms of the taking shelter, being under observation, then gradually having a certain quota of rounds being chanted, and then clearing the IDC course, ISKCON Disciple course, and then being qualified for initiation. All this is meant to just to make sure that the devotees are sincere enough to stay committed in following the instructions and following the vows that they will be taking in front of the spiritual master. So a spiritual master needs to check this. Also, it is mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in the NOD book. Sometimes we see, sometimes even at a risk, a sannyasi in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may accept even a person who is not thoroughly fit to become a disciple. And later on, by the mercy of such a bona fide spiritual master, the disciple is gradually elevated. So sometimes we see that devotees are taking risk on behalf of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And we also hear that many a times the spiritual master suffers because of the mistakes committed by the disciples in terms of having a bad health and so on. So as a disciple, we should be very, very careful that any mistakes, any wrong deeds we commit has a direct impact in terms of our spiritual master having accepted our responsibility. So we should not commit an activity which will bring bad name or which will bring defame to the spiritual master. Then in terms of constructing the temples, of course, Srila Prabhupada also mentions that we can construct big temples as far as attracting the common mass of people to practice devotional service in a systematic way, to learn about spiritual life. But at the same time, one should not be after constructing the big temples in order to accept bigger and nicer facilities for ourselves. So that Srila Prabhupada mentions very, very clearly in the purport. And I'll just read this out. Unfortunately, it happens that someone who is not fit to become a spiritual master may approach wealthy persons to contribute for temple constructions. If such money is utilized by unqualified spiritual masters for living comfortably in costly temples without actually doing any preaching work, that is not acceptable. In other words, a spiritual master need not be very enthusiastic for constructing temple buildings simply in the name of so-called spiritual advancements. Rather, his first and foremost activity should be to preach. So we are allowed to construct big temples and attract people only if that is done for the preaching purpose, not for getting the comforts and so on. And for this, I've quoted the example of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he saw that his own disciples were competing and fighting amongst each other in order who would get a better quarters, a room in the Bagbazar Gaudiya Math temple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't appreciate this behavior of the devotees, and he told Srila Prabhupada that if possible, I rather sell off the marbles in the Bagbazar Gaudiya Math temples and we print books and distribute those books. So we should not be after having a very nicer facilities except when it is for preaching mission, not for our own comfort. And for reading many books, there comes a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, which reads, Bahu Shastre Bahu Vakya Chitte Brahma Hoye Sadhya Sadhana Sreshtana Haya Nishchaya. If one becomes a bookworm, reading many books and scriptures and hearing many commentaries and instructions of many men, this will produce doubt within his heart. One cannot in this way ascertain the real goal of life. So primarily, we should be very, very well conversant with the books of Srila Prabhupada and the books being published by Bhaktivedanta Book Trust before moving to other books. Otherwise, if we just keep hopping from one book to another in order to get something of essence to us without properly being conversant with Srila Prabhupada's teachings, we will be confused in terms of what should be our priority and what is the Siddhanta. And Srila Prabhupada has specifically mentioned in Nectar of Devotion 4 books. Let me see, where is that part? Yeah, so this is mentioned on page 72. Practically, if one reads very carefully 4 books, he mentions one very carefully reads Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and this Nectar of Devotion, that will give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. One need not take the trouble of reading other books. That means at least we should be very well conversant with these books before moving to any other books of the Goswamis and other Acharyas. Namanishta Prabhuji, do you want to share anything, Prabhuji, on this?
This is a big topic, big deviation nowadays. See, what happens is that at least many devotees, when they read Prabhupada books, they do not read at higher levels. The first level reading is just, seeing the philosophy and the points. This is the lowest level. And the second level is that we see the heart of Srila Prabhupada, his desires. Prabhupada wants this, feel the presence of Prabhupada. And the highest level is we take orders from his books. Prabhupada is giving various orders in his books. Do this, don't do this. Thinking, feeling, and willing. Thinking means appreciate the concepts. That's the lowest level. It all begin like that. Yeah, it's nice. Second level, when you read Prabhupada books, we feel so much happy in the shelter of pure devotee. The third level, we take orders from his books. So mostly devotees, when they are neophyte, they're just attracted to the level 1. They just read in some points. And then they immediately, recently I saw one devotee was telling me, Are, I'm giving you 4 commentaries of previous Acharya just to read Bhagavad Gita. I said, see, definitely, but what is my condition now? And at the neophyte level where we are not even connected and established a relationship to Srila Prabhupada, this will be disastrous if somebody does this. And there is no relationship. They will not have a relationship and they will just be scattering, seeing various points. I got one more point. I got one more point. It's all rubbish. And I've seen a disasters in spiritual life of many people who've done that. My own college, there are 4 of us. I'm the only one. I just, even today, I only read Prabhupada. I just don't read any other. And what is my 3 people who did not follow that? They have left ISKCON and they have taken Diksha from some Babaji's in Vrindavan. That's their condition. What do I do? I can't even talk to them. Gone just crazy. So because they didn't establish. Now when you establish a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, then you follow rules and regulations given to Prabhupada. And you develop firm happiness and faith. I'm a shelter of the Acharya. Otherwise, they get lost into this point system. It's silly. So my request to all the devotees is that at least as our yatra policy, if I'm competent to set a yatra policies, stick to Prabhupada books. Just stick to Prabhupada books. And Prabhupada, they find some instruction here. Prabhupada says in this purport that, if you want to read this, you should read this Goswami. Yeah, Prabhupada's, what is the application Prabhupada gave? Read the application. 6 times Prabhupada says, you read my books first. 6 times. And tell me how many of you will do 6 times in your whole life? Most of the devotees do not have any reading habit. I do not know how many here. Once we were in Mayapur, they were all leaders of the movement and senior congregations. There were, I think, 1,000 people. And everybody had spent 10 years of the movement. They had not read Bhagavad Gita Prabhupada more than 1 time. It was so embarrassing to see the condition. Correct? So people are struggling to have a reading habit, struggling to even read Prabhupada books 1 time. They don't even read Bhagavatam. They have taken some abridged edition and that they pass a time in that rubbish. Read Prabhupada books, Baba. You call yourself senior devotees, do not have time to read even Bhagavatam, Shloka, purport. Please read. Then you say, I have understood what Prabhupada tries to say. Because in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is quite formal, as Krishna is also formal in Bhagavad Gita. And in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is a little more informal. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, he speaks so informally. Like, as if you feel so sweet. He's more accessible as you start reading the books. So reading Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita 1 time, that itself commitment I don't see people are having. Okay, within 2 years I'll do this. That itself is not there. And like idiots, and I read that, who just telling the names of different books just to impress people. I've read this, I've read that. Okay. So my request will be as a yatra, if I have the authority, as a yatra policy, please only Prabhupada books. And in a classes, I will not like to hear anybody quoting anything except Prabhupada books. That is the policy. You read privately, but don't quote. If you do not understand the value of this, to read only Prabhupada books, some people may have. We read, no problem. See, the point is that even our Acharya, they have not written in English. Either it is Sanskrit or Bengali. And don't tell me this nonsense that a translation of that is on the level of Prabhupada translation. Like Prabhupada translate Nectar Devotion. Anybody can translate Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But that translation doesn't come on the platform of Prabhupada translation. Not even 0.0000000. Somewhere it's okay. For sometimes the Purvacharya's books are more needed for reference. Suppose you are building the planetarium in Mayapur, you need to, for reference time, that time study. Because you have to locate now where is Jupiter, where is Saturn, and Prabhupada has not, or you are doing some scientific preaching. For that, you need some references. That is separate issue. But as such, our reading, a particular service is there. For that, you have been assigned some service, and for that, some detail you need. You are doing Deity Worship, you need to get some detail. You can refer to Purvacharya books. But otherwise, as our, in the colleges, what we have a textbook, and then we have reference books. So textbooks for us is Prabhupada books. Prabhupada said, whatever you need to go back to Godhead, I've given in my books. Have faith in that. Fix yourself, read Srila Prabhupada books, and they will the guide to go to spiritual book. Do that. Then otherwise your faith is not there still. Your faith is hardly there. And the next reference books are sometimes needed, some for some specific service that is there. Okay, I feel that this is at least in the classes, in our platform that we have, don't quote any other books. You may read, okay, you have a choice. Because then what happens? The simple devotee reading Bhagavad Gita, no, you have to read that also. You have to read commentary by this such. That is all there. Not first 6 times have you finished reading. Take it, do that. And that your personal some reference you can do. But don't quote. Quote, we should quote Prabhupada references. Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said this. And that I think should be the policy because he is our founder Acharya. You cannot jump over it. Okay. Is it fine?
Yes, Prabhuji. We have a couple of hands raised, Prabhuji. We'll just clear those. Ramesh, Prabhu, please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Prabhuji, one doubt, like, so why 2 gurus, Prabhu? Say, because everything are from ISKCON's principles only, like, Prabhu, even Diksha or Shiksha Guru, they have the same principles only, no, Prabhu? So, they, so then why 2 gurus, Prabhu? Because we'll be more closer to the
Oh, why
Shiksha Guru and
no, see what happens in a unique situation, in a parampara, when there is a founder Acharya, then he has a unique position. Just like we are not something unique. Go to Madhvas, always meditation of Madhvacharya is there, whatever this. You tell them, I want to go back to Krishna, Madhvacharya will take you. I can just guide you what he has to. He takes a prominent, he becomes like an umbrella. Even in science, it is like that. Say Einstein developed certain things, a lot of people get Nobel Prizes after that, but they're just working on what he developed. They're not making a new discovery. So founder Acharya sets the rules and regulations. I told you many, many times, Prabhupada set 4 things. Founder Acharya, therefore unique in the Sampradaya. He set the rules and regulations. Your guru cannot do that. Prabhupada does that. Nobody can change, nobody can add. In ISKCON, whatever rules have been set, has been, like science doesn't change, the application changes. But Prabhupada has given an application and he said this is for 10,000 years till the time this this movement will remain. Prediction. So being a founder Acharya, he has a unique position. Now my guru cannot change any rule Prabhupada set. He cannot touch it also. So founder Acharya, he gives all the philosophy. Like Madhvacharya gave all the books, all the philosophy. Correct? So same way, Prabhupada has a unique position. Then Prabhupada gives the best example. Therefore, in any lecture, it is not an artificial or a bureaucracy. He is the best example in this movement. Like Madhvacharya, the best example in Madhvas. Ramanujacharya, the best example in Ramanujas in South India. Correct? And then he gives a guarantee. Now, who can give guarantee? Tell me. Can anybody give a guarantee in whole ISKCON movement? We chant 16, I'll take you back to God. He cannot give. It's Prabhupada gave the guarantee. We chant. Otherwise, it is 64 rounds. How can he give a guarantee? So it's a very big position Prabhupada occupies in our life. Okay? You understand? Founder Acharya. Because the founder Acharya, he occupies a unique position. Okay. Along with your Diksha Guru. Okay? Just so like we come to ISKCON movement, you read Prabhupada books. You have not even met your Diksha Guru that time. Your relationship to Prabhupada even started before you met your Diksha Guru. True?
That's true.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And Murli Prabhu, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I actually was taking notes, Prabhu. The 4 books which you mentioned, which is important.
Yes.
Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Which are the other 2, Prabhu?
Yeah, so that is mentioned here, okay? Practically, if one very carefully reads Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and this nectar of devotion.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
But in Bhakti Shastri, we also have nectar of instruction coming, which is a small book by Prabhupada only. So that also we'll read, but these are the 4 books quoted by Prabhupada.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, bro.
That will give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna consciousness if we read these 4 books. Hare Krishna. So we are almost closing in. Yes. So this is the last slide for discussion today. Being straightforward in our dealings and equilibrium in loss and gain. One second. Yeah. So in terms of being straightforward, there are again many examples of devotees, and one example which comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita is of a devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he is not an outside materialistic person. Gopinath Patnaik, sorry, not Gopinath Acharya, Gopinath Patnaik, who happened to be brother of Srila Ramananda Rai, who was a very close associate of Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Gopinath Patnaik was serving in the kingdom of Maharaj Prataprudra as a Tahsildar of one of the province in the kingdom. And there was some misappropriation of the funds committed by Gopinath Patnaik as a result of this misappropriation of fund. And there was also some misunderstanding between Maharaj Prataparudra's son and Gopinath Patnaik. As a result of this misappropriation of the funds, the king's son got him arrested, Gopinath Patnaik. And when the news came through devotees to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, directly or indirectly asking Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to exert his influence on Maharaj Prataprudra to have Gopinath Patnaik released from the custody. Lord Chaitanya was very upset. He didn't like this recommendation by the devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's view was, if he has done something wrong, then he should be punished. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned that king happens to be the direct representative of the Lord. So if somebody has done a mistake in his service to king, he is liable to be punished. And finally, it happened that Gopinath Patnaik was given a very severe punishment by Prataprudra Maharaj's son. He was about to be executed, which means death penalty, in a very, very harsh manner, where he was about to be thrown on the changa. Changa is mentioned as the swords put upside down, which means all the tips of the swords pointing upwards, and the person will be thrown on top, so that he would die a very painful death. And devotees were really desperate to save Gopinath Patnaik, and they came to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when devotees pleaded with the Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got really angry, and he said that if you ask me once more, I will leave this place and never return to this place. And devotees were praying very hard. Then finally it happened that the news reached Maharaj Prataprudra that one of the devotees who had done this mistake of misappropriation of the funds is about to be executed. Maharaj Prataprudra immediately got alarmed and stopped that execution. And he said, I never asked to give such harsh punishment, and the mistake has happened, and I hope he has learned his lesson. Let him go. And then when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got the news that Gopinath Patnaik has been released by Maharaj Prataprudra, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that is the mercy of Lord Jagannath, and he has to be careful in his dealings going forward. That means Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not condone the wrongdoings of his devotee, even if he happened to be a devotee as well as the relative of a close associate of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wanted devotees to conduct their business, conduct their profession in an honest means, and be very, very straightforward in one's dealings. So this is one example. And another example for the equilibrium in loss and gain, the wonderful example of a great devotee within our movement, His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Swami Maharaj. So post Srila Prabhupada's departure around 1984, when devotees had assembled for the GBC meetings which preceded the Gaur Purnima festival, that time on one particular occasion, there was a very strong attack by the miscreants on the temple property in Mayapur, on ISKCON Mayapur Chandrodaya temple. And these miscreants, they threw bombs on the devotees. They attacked post midnight, and one of the devotee leaders who was taking rest and who tried to confront the miscreant attackers, one of the grenade which was thrown by the miscreants, it exploded, and this devotee, His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Swami Maharaj, he lost his leg in the attack. And his realization or his thoughts after this happened, and after his leg had to be amputated, was that this leg was anyway giving me a lot of troubles and all. So Krishna just relieved me of this misery of having to suffer. And he didn't consider it that although I am a devotee and I was trying to protect the property of the Lord and the deities and the devotees, why did it happen to me? So the point is, a devotee should be very, very equipoised in both loss and gain, and should have full conviction whatever happens, happens by the will of the Lord, and ultimately he desires good for me. So I should have full faith and patience in understanding, accepting the Lord's wish. Namanishta Prabhuji, would like to add anything on this, Prabhuji?
The Gopinath Patnaik case is very quick narration in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked then what he was doing. So he was chanting and marking on his body how many rounds he has done. So he was very happy to see that. Even though he was on the death, about to be killed, and in such a painful way, he was peacefully chanting the holy names. Yes, Prabhu.
So we had planned these all items, Prabhuji, from chapter 6 and 7 today.
So tomorrow and next Sunday is where chapter?
Chapter 8 and on, where various offenses like Seva, Parad, Nama, Parad, and all are covered. Prabhuji. Don't spot.
So important nectar of devotion, not only philosophy, goes into practices also. Anna?
Do we have any questions from any of the devotees for Namanishta Prabhuji? We have few minutes. All right. Okay, Prabhuji. Shall we conclude, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Vamcha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.